Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to take a light-hearted look at IP ratings and what they are and why they're so important. So we've all seen IP ratings on outdoor light fittings, junction boxes, consumer units, but what is an IP rating? Anyone know? Anyone? Well, it actually means Ingress Protection, and I bet everyone's going, well, I still don't know what he's on about. So, best thing to do is we're going to go through the sheet and try and explain this in as simple terms as we can, what this all means. Right, so here's the table. As you can see, the two numbers actually relate to solids and water. So let's take the IP65 just as a quick example. So the first number, the number 6, comes down here and it's here. And what that 6 stands for is that the item is supposed to be dust tight, no ingress of dust, and should be able to manage that for 2 to 8 hours at a minimum. And the 5 relates to water, so you come down here, so that the item will be protected against jets of water and limited ingress is permitted. So it's not watertight, it's just water, you could argue it's weatherproof. Maybe that's a way to look at it. So an IP rating can also have an X. So a good example, the top and sides of a consumer unit, the top of a consumer unit would be rated as IP4X. Okay, what that actually means is that it comes down here, the number 4 is related to this. So the top of a consumer unit should be protected against a solid object greater than 1 millimeter, such as a wire. So nothing should be able to get into the top of a consumer unit that's bigger than 1 millimeter. On the X side, normally consumer units are not waterproof. Obviously, if you want them to be, you can get waterproof consumer units, obviously, but ones that are in your normal home will be IP4X rated on the top. On the sides, they're normally rated at IP2X, which is this number here. So on the sides of a consumer unit, it should be protected against a solid object greater than 12.5 millimeters, such as a finger. So you shouldn't be able to put your finger into the side of a consumer unit. So the first number relates to solid objects, i.e. putting something where it doesn't belong. I'm sure there'll be a lot of you who can think of other parts of the human body where a finger shouldn't go. And anyone of a certain age will probably get that reference straight away. But in all seriousness, let's try and keep it clean for YouTube, shall we? I don't want this video banned. It's rather embarrassing. There we go. Right, ow! So let's have a look at each one of these in turn. So let's go through the solids first. So if something has an IP rating of 1, it'll be protected against a solid object greater than 50 millimeters, such as your hand entering an object. Come up to number 2, and it's protected against a solid object greater than 12.5 millimeters, such as a finger. You can see where this is going. The higher the numbers, the greater the protection. Come on to number 3, protected against a solid object greater than 2.5 millimeters, such as a screwdriver. We've done number 4. Come on to number 5, which is dust protected. Limited ingress of dust permitted, will not interfere with the operation of the equipment, and it's rated to be able to withstand dust ingress for 2 to 8 hours. Finally, we come on to number 6, which we mentioned earlier. It's supposed to be dust tight, no ingress of dust, and again it should be able to withstand that for 2 to 8 hours. There are other numbers beyond this point, which as a domestic electrician or homeowner, you normally wouldn't see the ones above that. They're more to commercial and industrial applications normally. So let's go on to the water side of things. So I'm going to call these levels because that's a good way to look at this. So at level 1, protected against vertically falling drops of water, and limited ingress is permitted. So yes, I suppose you could argue that's something that could withstand rain outside, but that's all it would do, really. Got to level 2, protected against vertically falling drops of water with enclosure tilted up to 15 degrees from the vertical, limited ingress permitted. Basically what that's saying is it's identical to number 1, but it can be, off centre effectively. Come up to level 3, you're protected against sprays of water up to 60 degrees from the vertical, limited ingress permitted for up to 3 minutes. So on a windy day, it's raining, a device or an item like this should be able to withstand water ingress for up to 3 minutes. That's not a long time. Then we come up to level 4. Now this one, protected against water splashed from all directions with limited ingress permitted. If you have a light that's rated as 44, and you do see them, effectively that is an outside light, it's perfectly fine, but you would normally find that light fitted in a porch or somewhere where there's some protection from the weather. You wouldn't have a IP44 rated light out in your garden where it's exposed to all weather. It wouldn't last very long. So come on to level 5, and this will be protected against jets of water with limited ingress permitted. So now we're getting on to the level where things could actually exist in the garden. So at this point you will normally see lights and junction boxes. That's where you'll start to see this level that they'll be allowed outside in all weathers. Most junction boxes that are made to be outside have an IP rating of 65, and they're made of a material which is UV resistant as well. You don't want to put, say, plastic in your garden, because I'm sure you've all seen it. If you leave a plastic box outside in your garden for any length of time, it'll just crumble to dust eventually. So let's roll on to level 6 now. Water from heavy seas or water projected in powerful jets shall not enter the enclosure in harmful quantities. Things like this, IP66 and above, probably you would see them on boats, marinas, these type of things, but not underwater. We'll come to those down here. So we'll just scroll this down slightly. There we go. So IP rated number 7. You've got protection against the effects of immersion in water between 15 centimetres and 1 metre for half an hour. That's fairly obvious. What that means is you could have this device underwater, it'll be perfectly fine, but it's only rated to be protected for half an hour. Now oddly, and we'll come on to bathrooms in a minute, IP67, according to the regulations, is what the minimum status is for having an item in zone 0, and we'll come to that in a minute. Personally, I think that is wrong, because it's only saying that that device will be protected for half an hour in zone 0. I'm not so sure about that. We'll come on to level 8, and level 8 is protection against the effects of immersion in water under pressure for long periods. I would say most things in zone 0 of a bathroom should be IP68, and I would always fit something at IP68 in a bathroom or swimming pool or hot tub at that rating. I would not do it at 67. So that is all the different ratings. Like I say, there are others, but they're not really for the domestic environment. They're more likely to be found in commercial and industrial settings. Now, you can have extra letters after these. You don't see them a lot. But there is one that electricians may come across, which is the IPXXB. It's more used in Europe, to be honest, than it is in this country. Its equivalent is actually IP2X, the vertical surface on a consumer unit. So they are interchangeable. If you look at the definitions, IPXXB and IP2X are identical. They're exactly the same. I thought I'd mention that in passing. Like I say, normally you wouldn't come across those in a domestic setting. With very, very rarely. I've not come across them. The only place I've actually come across those are actually in the classroom, funny enough, when I've been doing calls for them. So that's the only place I've seen them. So, I think I briefly touched on it when I was talking about that table there. Where do you normally see these? Well, the majority of the time people will see these outside. So, as I've mentioned there very briefly, you see an IP44 light. That can be outside, but normally you'd put it where it can be at least protected, so in a porch or an overhang, so it doesn't get all the weather on it. The most common one that you'll see is IP65. You will see sometimes IP67 lights, but most of the time you'll see IP65. Electricians will always see them on junction boxes. They'll be written in the corner, IP65. And most lights that are installed outside are IP65 as well. That's really the most common one you'll see. So let's come on to areas inside the house where you could get water, dust and so on. So let's go, and the area I'm talking about here is bathrooms. So let's have a look at that. So a bathroom is divided up into effectively 4 zones, as you can see. So let's run through each one. So let's start with zone 0, which is this one, and zone 0 is basically anywhere where basically things could be completely submerged. And as you saw when we were looking through the ratings guide, normally you'd want something at least 67. Personally, anywhere, if I'm fitting lights anywhere in a zone 0, I'll be doing IP68, not IP67. So we'll come on to zone 1. Normally is an area above a bathroom shower to the height of 2.25 metres from the floor. Now the minimum rating for zone 1 is IP45. So very quickly, so 45, protected against solid object greater than 1 millimetre, and 5, protected against jets of water. So you can see 45, yeah, for a shower, yeah. And above a bath, where there'll be splashing potentially, yes, I could see IP45. However, it's generally accepted that you should be using equipment that's IP65 rated or better in zone 1. Then we come to zone 2, which is the next area away from where the water will be. This is an area that stretches 0.6 of a metre outside the perimeter of a bath, shower, or as you can see, a sink. So there's your shower, there's your sink, there's your bath. And at this point you're looking at an IP rating of at least 44, which I mentioned before. So that's what you would have in zone 2. Now the final zone is effectively when you're outside of all of these. So anywhere outside of zone 1 and 0, 1 and 2, where it's unlikely water will get to, then it actually states that you should have a rating of at least IP20. Now there is no 0, so it should be IP2X is what it's saying. However, whenever I'm doing these, I would suggest that it's got to have at least some kind of water protection. I think IP2X is too low. Most of the time in bathrooms you're going to be fitting IP65 items, unless you're in zone 0, then you're going to be doing IP68. The other thing about zone 0, which I forgot to mention, which is not part of the IP rating, but normally anything in zone 0 that's underwater, you would normally be fitting 12 volt devices. You would not be fitting 230 volt devices. So if there is a fault at 12 volts, it's unlikely to do any harm. So not only are you looking at an IP rating of 68, you're looking at 12 volt devices in zone 0 normally. Okay, so that covers bathrooms. Another area that really relates to bathrooms, you could argue, is saunas. Again, saunas will have a lot of, potentially will have steam rooms. Steam rooms, saunas, potentially can have a lot of moisture. I wouldn't be fitting anything that's less than IP65 in those environments. As I say, there are regulations, there aren't many. A lot of it with IP ratings is actually down to common sense, to be fair. There are, like I say, there are some regulations that you have to to adhere to, especially with bathrooms. But 9 times out of 10, it's just common sense. You're not going to put a non-waterproof item outside in the rain or in a bath. You're certainly not going to put a 230 volt device in a bath. So anyway, it's a short video, but it is an overlooked subject, and we see it every day. So I hope it's been of some use for people, and obviously we will see you on the next one.